West Virginia has lost 4 straight games to Texas Tech, and Red Raiders come in mad that they haven't won more games in 2023, and I think they're looking to take it out on the Mountaineers. What can Neal Brown and company do to stave off the Red Raiders? Well, we're going to talk about that. I've got an article from Keenan Cummings I want to read, give some keys to the game, impact players, things like that. Stick with me, guys, as we preview Texas Tech versus West Virginia right after this word from our sponsor. This episode of Mountaineer Paul Talks Football is brought to you by Dutch Miller Automotive, where friends and family pricing means you get the best deal right up front on any new or pre-loved vehicle in stock every time. With brands like Chevrolet, Chrysler, Dodge, Ram, Jeep, Hyundai, Kia, GMC, Buick, and Subaru, the Dutch Miller Automotive family is always growing and ready to put you in the car or truck you've been searching for. Check out our inventory across West Virginia at DutchMillerAuto.com or come in today to the home of friends and family pricing, only at a Dutch Miller Automotive store near you.
This is for Cameron.
And what is up, guys? Welcome back and welcome in. My name is Mountaineer Paul. You have landed right here at another episode of Mountaineer Paul Talks Football, guys. I appreciate you guys for coming in on this Wednesday. We're going to preview the game in which the Mountaineers have struggled in Neal Brown's tenure to win. He's never beaten the Red Raiders as the head coach of the West Virginia Mountaineers. And I think a lot of fans are wondering, is Neal Brown snake bitten by Texas Tech, a place that he used to work at, along with Matt Moore and Chad Scott as well? I've got an article from Keenan Cummings at westvirginiasports.com. This comes from his Behind Enemy Lines series, and this was done in an interview with RedRaidersSports.com, Jarrett Ramirez. Keenan, in this article, is asking certain questions, and I thought instead of me trying to memorize a bunch of stuff and tell you about it, hey, this guy right here has got it all right down in black and white, and we can talk about it afterwards. Texas Tech got off to a slow start with back-to-back losses. How has this team improved, and how have they worked out of some of the early kinks? What are the concerns? It was a rough start to the season for Texas Tech, but it was fortunate to have a tune-up game against an FCS opponent, Tarleton State, Saturday. There were a lot of questions surrounding the play calling, particularly the usage of the run game. Taj Brooks has been a key feature at running back for the Red Raiders, and against Tarleton, more carries, 19, than he did in the previous 2 games. That was a key area where the staff wanted to get Brooks involved early. Another concern for the Red Raiders was a lack of discipline with penalties. Against Wyoming, an interception was called back due to hands to the face call at the line of scrimmage, and several untimely and avoidable penalties led to Tech's loss that night. And there were some that played a factor against Oregon Saturday night. The Red Raiders played a relatively clean game, only being flagged twice. How has Tyler Shough improved? What are his strengths, and how is he running the offense? The biggest improvement in Tyler Shough's game has been his ability in the run game. They called his number quite a bit against Oregon, and that helped get the offense going when he was able to make plays with his legs. The offense has flashed at times, but there has still been inconsistency with him manning that side of the ball. Against Wyoming, Tech got out to a hot start, but the offense was pitiful, and it was too late when they started to click again. By then, they had already lost all momentum. Shough's decision-making hit a debate hotbed, but if he can get back to the level that he was at the end of 2022, there'll be much more success from him in the offense. The idea is that there are a lot of tendencies that would like to carry over from Kingsbury's high-powered offenses from years ago. One thing Kitley and McGuire made clear before this last season is that they would not shy away from running the ball. Carries for Brooks have been hard to come by, aside from Saturday's game. This offense is a weird mix of tempo and methodical drives. They will run the ball, but more often than not are throwing out of the shotgun with a heavy emphasis on using motion to try to shift the defense. Jerand Bradley and Miles Price have been the clear number 1 and number 2 receivers, but 6'9" tight end Mason Tharp is always a mismatch nightmare. Tharp is especially dangerous when Kitley keys on trying to get him the ball. This team does not take as many deep shots as one would expect from an air raid style offense, but there is an important thing to remember with this unit. It is an air raid inspired, I believe, but there are a lot less components in it than the traditional air raid scheme. Is it the same on the defensive side of things? The expectation going into the season was that the Red Raiders were going to dominate up front. Defensive tackles Jalen Hutchings and Tony Bradford were arguably the two biggest returners this season. The pass rush has been struggling to this point. The staff has not been satisfied with their edge rushers' usage of pass rush lanes. The run defense has been critical, however, and has been making up for lack of pass rush. Bucky Irving, the star running back at Oregon, was pretty much a non-factor in the rush game against Tech. What has largely been aiding Tech in its defensive success has been the play from the linebackers in secondary. Josiah Pierre has been performing better than expected at the inside linebacker spot. Safety Dadrion Taylor Demerson has been the anchor of the secondary. And keep an eye on Malik Dunlap, another super senior cornerback who has 2 interceptions in his last game. Then he asked him, how do you see this game playing out and what are the keys? Playing in Morgantown has always been a struggle for Tech. There are a few players left on the team, either of the last 2 away victories in 21 and 19. Depending on what happens with Garrett Green, I expect West Virginia to keep relying on the run game. That plays into Texas Tech's favor with how that defense has been able to contain the run. If the offense finds its stride, I can see the Red Raiders winning this one. I like Tech. Not sure how high scoring it will be. So my scoreline prediction will be 27-17. I thought it was interesting that the guy that Keenan talked to said that Texas Tech is basically asking West Virginia to run the ball. And I think they're really confident in the way things turned out last year. Texas Tech absolutely dominated this offensive line. The same guys that are playing this Saturday. And you have to wonder if Texas Tech has a mental edge in this game. It's an interesting thing that's happening with the 4-game winning streak, the way Texas Tech defense played against West Virginia last year. There's a lot of things. But one thing I do like is Tyler Shuck over Baron Morton. I'm just a bigger Baron Morton fan. I think he's a better thrower of the football, and that tends to be West Virginia's weakness as of to this date. Shuck is more of a runner that can throw it. He can definitely throw it. I'm not saying he can't. But he's not as, in my opinion, he doesn't have as much arm talent as Morton does. He's just a more experienced player, and it seems like somebody they trust a little bit more to run the offense right. So what are my keys to the game? If you listen to Joey McGuire, Tim DeRuyter, and those guys talk about what exactly is an issue for the defense so far this year, they talked about the tight ends, and tight ends have been a problem for them. Cole Taylor could be somebody to watch for in this game, guys. He could have a breakout game versus Texas Tech. Tyler Shuck over Baron Morton, to me, is an interesting choice. I know Tyler Shuck has been the starter and won a battle in camp, but I just like Morton more. I said it earlier. I'm going to say it again. I think he's got more arm talent. It'll be interesting to see if we see Morton in this game, if Shuck struggles versus this physical defense of West Virginia. X factors for West Virginia, I already mentioned Cole Taylor, but I would be remiss if I didn't say Nico Marchiol. Whether Garrett Green plays or not, it could be that Garrett tries to go and just can't. Nico might have to come in, or he just may get the start. And if that's the case, you got to go with Nico Marchiol as the huge X factor in this game. My X factors for Texas Tech are Hutchings and Bradford, the 2 big defensive linemen that returned this year that absolutely dominated on film. If you watch that game versus West Virginia's offensive line last year, I think it's going to be a similar game this year. But I think this offensive line has something to prove, and I think they're out to prove it. And I think they're out to prove that this is not the same offensive line as last year. Overall, guys, I think this is going to be a physical game. You see Texas Tech and West Virginia on the ledger, and you don't think physical, but these are 2 really physical teams. Joey McGuire has just completely turned that part of Texas Tech around. The score prediction from the guy earlier, 27-17, I like that, but I like it in favor of the Mountaineers, guys. I think the West Virginia Mountaineers are going to win this game. I think the defense is going to dominate this game. I worry about our corners, guys. They could ruin the entire plan for us. But if you watch the last game, Tyron Bradley and Jarrett Bartlett were coming off the edge at the same time, guys. Look for this pass rush to get after Tyler Shuck, who has been sacked a bunch of times already this year. Don't forget he's thrown 4 picks. I just have a gut feeling that West Virginia and the Mountaineers are going to get off the schneid. As always, guys, don't forget to drop a comment below and tell me what your score prediction for the game is. If you haven't done so already, let me know how you feel about that. Subscribe to Mountaineer Paul Talks Football if you haven't done so. We always appreciate you guys, and don't forget to like the video and feed that monster we call the algorithm so we can get this video out to a wider audience. Really hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Let's go Mountaineers, hoping for a win this Saturday. And let's be honest, Neal Brown needs it again, right? All right, guys, this has been another edition of Mountaineer Paul Talks Football. This episode is over. I am out.
This is for Cameron. Tim Kill.